Hey everybody, welcome to a brand new season of Rehash, a Web3 podcast. I'm your host, Diana Chen, and we are now on season 11 of the podcast. And as some of you are already aware, in order to celebrate the last 10 seasons of Rehash, we held an all-stars contest where we brought back 35 of your favorite past guests and asked you to vote on the top 5 you most wanted to hear again on the podcast. And today we have one of those returning guests here with us, and it's none other than Billy Luedtke from Intuition. Not only was Billy voted back onto the pod, but he received votes from 113 wallets, which is by far the most number of wallets we've ever had vote for one single person in Rehash history. Some of you might recall Billy first appeared on Rehash back in season 5, episode 8, which aired in August of 2023, back when Billy was still building Intuition in stealth. Today, there's an entire white paper published on Intuition, and the platform is open for people to go explore, while they're still continuing to beta test and build out new features, many of which Billy shares in this episode. Also, one of the biggest pieces of feedback I got from my last conversation with Billy was that people really enjoyed how we went off on these long philosophical tangents about trust and truth and identity and all of these things. And apparently that's just what we do, because it definitely happens again in today's episode. So please brace yourselves for that. And also please hop into our Telegram chat at t.me/rehashweb3 or tag us on Twitter at rehashweb3 and tell us your thoughts on all of the weird philosophical and somewhat esoteric questions we pose to each other toward the end of this episode, because as you'll hear, we don't have any of the answers and we would love to hear what you all think. So anyway, without further ado, please enjoy my conversation with Billy Luedtke. Hey, Billy, welcome back to Rehash. It's so good to have you here again.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited and nervous to do it again.
No need to be nervous. I'm super excited. It's going to be a lot of fun. Your episode last time was a crowd favorite. I still have people coming to me, telling me about it, telling me how much they loved it, how we just went off the rails a little bit with it and got super meta and kind of philosophical and weird. And people like that. So maybe we'll do it again today. Who knows?
I'm in. Let's do it.
Sweet. So it's been a little while since I last spoke to you on Rehash. The last time you were on was season 5, episode 8, which was all the way back in August of 2023. So it's been about 18 months since we had you on. I remember when I talked to you last, you were just starting to build out Intuition. Or actually, I don't know how long you'd been working on it, but none of it was launched yet. You couldn't really go on it and do anything. Now we're in a totally different position where last summer you guys released your white paper. You launched to the public. People are actually using Intuition now. There's a whole platform that exists. So we're in a totally different playing field now. And I am really excited to catch up with you and just hear about what's been going on behind the scenes with Intuition in the last 18 months or so. So I don't know where you want to start with that. I know that's, you're like, we're 18 months. I did so much in 18 months, but maybe we start with just releasing the white paper last summer, since that seemed to be a pivotal moment for you guys.
A lot has changed since then. I mean, it's still kind of the same core fundamental concept, but I think the way that we kind of talk about it and communicate it is quite different now. I think back then we were talking about, it's largely identity centric and decentralized identity. We kept getting lumped into that vein of work. And I think that was a symptom of me just doing so much decentralized identity stuff that it's kind of baked in as a core thing to the Intuition protocol. But I don't know if identity is the main thing. And I think that was kind of maybe not the best way to frame it. And so I guess the change since the last episode and since then, and with the white paper and everything, is Intuition is largely, it's mainly about data. It's about giving people better intuition in all of their interactions. And then the question is, how do you give people better intuition in all their interactions? Well, you give them more better data about stuff. So, if you surf every day, maybe you have pretty good intuition about your surfboard because you collect data through personal experience, and then you store it in your head, and then you develop good intuition with respect to that surfboard over time. So how can we do that at scale? How can we crowdsource all of everyone's knowledge and all of everyone's intuition to kind of create this collective kind of mapping of the intuition of the collective conscious? So there's a lot of work that goes into doing that, it turns out, about getting all of the data about all of the things and then serving that data to people at the point of interaction. But that's largely what we're centered on, is just giving people more better contextual data from the voices they trust about anything that they're interacting with, whether that's a smart contract to make sure it's secure, or that the product's not a scam, or that, you're installing the right wallet software, or you're going to the right restaurant, or watching the right movie, or listening to a good podcast, or anything. Like anytime you go to make a decision, we just want to give you more better information about whatever it is that you're interacting with. And sorry for going on so long without pausing, but
no,
I think
please.
one of the biggest changes that kind of developed since we last spoke was kind of the emergence of the AI meta. And the way that I always viewed intuition, I just thought it was way too early to say this. It's like, I view us as building kind of the intuition module of the collective conscious, or like this AI hive mind that's developing. Like that thing needs humanity's crowdsourced intuition, because right now what is kind of being digested by the AI is not necessarily representative of our entire holistic inner state. And so what I want to do is like get more data from people out there so that the AI can consume it. And so I view us as kind of this, like, I always viewed this as this like very critical piece of the AI puzzle. And I just thought it was going to be 5-10 years before it happened. But now it's here. And so we got to lean into that ASAP.
Totally. Yeah, I think AI is a piece that we didn't really talk about in our last conversation because it still felt way too early for that. And now we're like deep into it. So I definitely want to dive more into the AI piece with you. Just to further set the scene a little bit, one thing that I know forms kind of the basis of what intuition is this concept of like atoms, triples, and signals, which I've read about in your white paper, which also, by the way, the white paper is like almost 100 pages. I did not read the whole thing. But the good news is there's also a light paper, which is only, I think, like 20 some pages, which is much more digestible than the white paper. Also, if there's a way to like, the format I found was just a PDF on your website. If there's a way to like be able to copy and paste the text so I can like copy and paste it into Claude and just have it summarize it for me, that would be amazing. But I was like trying to figure out how to shortcut this and I just could not. So I was like, damn it. But
there's actually an AI generated podcast that took the white paper and made a podcast out of it. So I'll make that more readily available, because I feel like that's the best resource for getting up to speed quickly.
Yeah, please. Yeah, send me the link to that. I'll link it out in the show notes here too. That's awesome. So anyway, going back to the concept of atoms, triples, and signals, what are these things? Because I have a feeling we're going to be bringing up these terms in this conversation.
Yeah. Great question. You got to start from the beginning, and we're going to already get esoteric. So like,
amazing.
Basically, the way that we crowdsource all of the information about all of the things and get people to want to like express a little bit more is by creating, I think like one mechanism or one lever that we can pull is kind of creating crypto economic mechanisms around the provisioning of data and the creating of data, giving people equity in the data they create, and then letting them get paid whenever that data is interacted with through these like programmatic value flows. And so then the question becomes, okay, how do you give people equity in the data they create? Like, are you just giving them equity in these like blobs of unstructured text? And so our answer to this like equity in the data problem is, what we do is we break down the data into these discrete ownable structured units. So the most basic primitive is called an atom, kind of like atoms in, I don't know, real life, where you're just like composing atoms together into higher order structures. So our like base primitive is the atom. An atom can represent any discrete concept. It just points to any arbitrary URI. So it can point to any data. It can point to like an IPFS ID, or it can point to a ceramic stream, or it can point to an ETH address, or it can point to a Spotify song link or a Twitter link. It can point to any piece of data. So that's like the fundamental thing. You can think of it kind of like the words in the dictionary. So the first thing we do is we get the words into the dictionary, which are the atoms. And then what we want to do is we want to kind of allow people to say things using these words. And we want those statements to also be ownable. Like, as people express these higher order statements, we also kind of want to retain the structure so that people can have equity in the data, no matter how complex it gets. And so the second primitive, there's only these three primitives. It's relatively simple. So second primitive is the triple, which is just an RDF/semantic triple, where you string three atoms together in subject, predicate, object format, kind of like a sentence, like almost exactly like a sentence. Let's say you have three atoms. You have like Billy is trustworthy. Those are three separate atoms. One represents Billy, one represents is, one represents trustworthy. What you can do is you can string them together into semantic triple format, and then you can say Billy is trustworthy. That's a triple. And you can use triples as atoms and this is where it gets a little bit complex, but you can use triples as atoms in other triples. So you can say any arbitrarily complex thing that you want. So it could be like Billy is trustworthy in the context of Web3 or whatever you want to say. So just using these two primitives, like you get this like very discrete structure for the data. So we know kind of like who should have equity in what data. And then the final primitive is called signal. And basically what we've done with that is we've decoupled the statements from who is saying what. So if you think about the statement, Billy is trustworthy, you can have a many-to-one relationship with respect to that statement, and any number of people can say that. You don't have to create like a new data object every single time you want to say that. So in like kind of current verifiable claim, verifiable data world, if you want to say like Billy is trustworthy, you would create like 10,000. Let's say there's 10,000 people who want to say that. You would create a new verifiable claim every single time. And the only thing that would change would be the issuer. So you're kind of duplicating a lot of the data when all you want to do is like say the same thing as everyone else. And so we create this kind of like many-to-one structure for statements. So the statements can exist with nobody saying them. We can pre-populate the knowledge graph with all of the words, all of the sentences, and then people can just opt into saying whatever they want to say. So, Billy is trustworthy can exist with nobody saying it, or it can exist with 10 million people saying it. And it just cleans up the data really nicely. And with all of that, now, basically what you do is, going back to the beginning, is now you retain this structure throughout the data, no matter how complex it gets. Everyone can have equity in it. And now that you know who owns what data, you can create programmatic values flow through it. So as that data is interacted with, from either the write or the read side, we know who should get paid. And I think that's just like a really, really powerful primitive for the future of the internet.
Yeah. Okay. That leads nicely into the incentives model because, I think one of the biggest questions I had last time and still have is how do you incentivize people to contribute their knowledge and to contribute quality knowledge on top of that? Like how do you, create an incentive system where it's not just like anytime you contribute knowledge, you get paid money, like financial incentive, for example. That would make me want to just spam the knowledge graph with random sentences. Like I could just say all sorts of random stuff that is not true and that's like not at all helpful to anybody. So walk me through like what that incentive structure looks like. And I think last time we talked about like when you think of incentives to start with, there's more than just financial incentives. There's like different kinds of incentives. So maybe start there.
Yeah. So the different kinds of incentives in my mind, we kind of basket them into 4 different categories. There's like economic, there is reputational, there is educational, and there is functional or just like utility incentives. I'll cover the economics last because that's like the big innovation. And I think the thing that has the most depth, but I'll use an example to kind of walk through the other ones. So reputational incentives are, let's take the example of you leaving a review on Amazon. As a reviewer on Amazon or a purchaser on Amazon, my reputation within the Amazon context gets me nothing. Like if I leave 1 million really useful reviews on Amazon, I don't get anything for it. I don't have like an Amazon friends list. I don't have an Amazon social graph. I can't become an Amazon influencer. Like that's not a thing that exists. So I have no reputational incentive to leave a review on Amazon. So I don't. But what if you decouple identities and data from the platform, and now that reputation is portable? So now the fact that you're a good reviewer in the context of Amazon might mean something outside of the context of Amazon. Maybe you can go get an uncollateralized loan with it. Or maybe some guy's like, oh, like I can trust him, I can hire him, or whatever. So once you decouple the reputation from the platform, it becomes more valuable because it becomes cross context. So that's the reputational piece. Educational is same thing. I'm on Amazon. I'm not like, I would love to help the people that I care about find good things. But again, I don't have an Amazon friends list, which it's so crazy to me. But it's like, I have no confidence that the people that I care about are going to find the data I create. And so I'm way less incentivized to leave the review on Amazon versus texting somebody or messaging in the group chat or telling them in person. So maybe I create data because the people that I care about are going to find it and it's going to help improve their lives. The final incentive is, or like the non-economic one, is functional incentives. So if you can just solve a pain point for someone, they might perform an action. And so for instance, like I might create some data about websites that I navigate to because I want to save them for later, or I want to categorize them so I can remember that those products exist. there might just be some benefit to me for creating the data where it's like, oh, I want to remember this thing. I want to save it for later. It's like my book list. It's like, okay, I come across a book. I create some data about the book for me, but it's also creating it for everyone else. So I'm performing entirely selfishly by just doing something that benefits me, but by proxy, it's benefiting the rest of the ecosystem. So those are the non-economic ones. Any questions there before I go down the other rabbit hole?
Not off the bat, but I'm sure we could get deeper into some of those. Like, why would I care about reputation if I'm just like a nobody, or all sorts of other things. But let's just go on with it, set the primitives, and then we can get deeper into it as we start talking about like specific examples on intuition.
So the final piece is the economic piece. And I think that this is really important because when you're dealing with somewhat unsexy, I don't know, I think it's sexy, but like unsexy stuff like decentralized self-sovereign identity or, user-centric or agent-centric verifiable data, people have a choice and they can pay attention to like the cool tech, or they can spend their most valuable resources, which is their time and their energy and their attention, trying to make generational wealth. And what they end up doing is, and I think this has been the problem of like the decentralized identity verifiable data ecosystem thus far, is like there hasn't been any money in it. And so no one pays attention because they can just look over here and make, millions of dollars. So why would they not opt for the thing that can kind of like retire them versus the thing that is kind of cool? And so if we can marry the two, then I think we can bring a lot of attention to things that maybe aren't as sexy on the surface. And so that has been since the beginning the core premise of intuition is how do we financialize this stuff? And the answer is, going back to the atoms and the triples and the signal, is you just give people equity in the data they create. And then as other people create similar data, you get paid. And as people read that data, you get paid. So you monetize kind of the writing and the reading side of the equation. We're starting with the data creation side. The reading side is kind of higher up the stack. So that's coming later. But basically what you do is, I'll frame it using an example. So let's take the example of intuition has replaced the like button on YouTube. Now liking a thing is a data point on intuition. You're signaling that you like the video. So you watch the video and you're like, wow, this is a piece of content worth consuming. I go down to the likes and only 100 people have liked it. I'm like, wow, I'm going to take like an economic bet on the relevance of this video. And I'm going to like deposit some ETH here to signal like, hey, I think that this is worth watching. And then maybe, one like equates to 0.001 ETH or whatever they want to configure it to. Then by paying that fee, because like you said, if you don't charge a fee, it just gets Sybil and DOS attacked to death and you just create all the data. So there has to be a fee. So pay a fee, get equity in data. And then let's say the video gets 1 million likes. Each subsequent like is paying you a little bit of a fee. So you're making money as the video gets 1 million likes. And then at some point it reaches some sort of asymptote where it's like, okay, this video is great, but it already has 1 million likes. Is it going to go to 10 million? Is it going to go to 100 million? I might be better off finding a new piece of content worth consuming rather than just liking the thing that everyone else has already liked. So I'm going to take my economic bandwidth elsewhere. So it creates this game around going and finding useful truths about things early and signaling that they're worth consuming because you make money as other people interact with them, and getting a little bit more in the weeds of things. When you make a statement about something via like a triple, what you're getting equity in is the triple and the constituent components of the triple. So let's say, you say Billy is trustworthy. You get equity in the claim Billy is trustworthy because you're saying it's relevant. You're getting equity in Billy because you're signaling that this atom is relevant. This Billy thing is relevant because you're creating some data about it. You get equity in this word is because you're using it in a sentence or a triple. So you're saying, hey, this is a relevant atom. And you get equity in trustworthy. So you get equity in kind of the whole cluster of data that you're creating rather than just like the specific statement that you're making. And so anytime anyone claims anything about Billy, anytime anyone uses the word is, anytime anyone uses the word trustworthy, you make money from them using those things. I'll pause there because that was probably a lot.
Yeah, I think that's where I'm like curious how that works, because a word like Billy, I mean, even Billy, I'm sure there's like multiple Billys out there on the internet, but especially even if I said Billy Luedtke, like as one word, okay, that is a more specific identifier to you. But the word is, for example, like how does that, I guess, like, how do people build equity with words like that are just going to be part of every sentence or part of every triple?
You want to find things with volume, but you want to be early to finding good things too. So like if everyone's using is, then you can use it, but you're gonna own like a small fraction of the whole pie. So maybe you want to find something that's better than is. Maybe you want to, like, is actually a really bad predicate. You probably don't want to use that because it would, maybe you say has attribute or some, because the predicate is largely the thing that you're going to query on. So it'd be like Billy, founder of, Billy enjoys, Billy has preference. So the predicates, you kind of want to get pretty specific. And going back to the question of what if there's many Billys, Adam's probably not the word Billy. It's probably like my ETH address. So it'd be like ETH address, trustworthy. ETH address has first name Billy. ETH address has last name Luedtke, whatever attributes you want to add to it. So you kind of like create this graph of related data points to that where they're all just kind of like related to one another.
Yeah. And then how does the fee distribution work then? Is it like the first person to say Billy and to make claims about Billy, that person earns more of fee than like the millionth person to talk about Billy?
Yeah, great question. So exactly. So basically the way it like actually technically works is you're getting shares of a 4626 vault. So like you pay fee to get share of thing. And then we observe kind of your balance of everything as what you're saying. So if you have a balance of something, that means like you're presently saying it. And so as more kind of people pile into a specific thing, the share price goes up. So that's how you make money. And that's also how you get less shares per dollar. So if you're early, everything's on kind of these bonding curves. So if you're early to something, you make more money than if you're later.
It reminds me of like friend tech a little bit, right? Like if you're early to it, it's worth more than if you're later to it.
Exactly. Yeah.
It also reminds me of like, I feel like people have tried to build things like this in specific contexts, like in the context of like music, like finding smaller artists who haven't been discovered by labels yet and trying to boost them so that and making more. You're smiling. So I feel like you have something to say.
That's the thing is like everyone is doing something like this for like a specific use case. And it's like, whoa, let's just build a protocol where you could just do it for anything. And so like, it's just the meta TCR. And we were calling it like this like giant meta TCR for everything. But James Young from Collabland just said, whoa, it's not a TCR, it's a token curated graph. Like you guys are the first token curated graph. And I was like, oh my God, that's exactly what we are. So got to start leaning into that one liner a little bit more.
I was going to ask you about that too, because I have heard you say meta TCR before. TCR is token curated registry for those who aren't familiar. But how do you see the intuition TCR or TCG differing from like our idea of like what a traditional TCR is?
Yeah, I mean, there's been like lots of different things that have branded as TCR. And I mean, if you break the term down into just like what it is, it's just a registry that's curated by tokens. And so I just kind of like apply it relatively loosely. And I think kind of the main differentiator, which makes it really hard, but it's what we set out to do, is just doing it for everything, as opposed to doing it for like one specific context, like you said, maybe music or podcast TCR or book TCR or TCR with Ethereum community values. It's like, no, you just have like one TCR for everything because all the data is interrelated. And if you start fragmenting it through all these various different TCRs, then you can't really like look at the relationships between things. So like social graph, if it's friend tech context, that's a TCR of people you might want to follow on Twitter. And so like that's valuable data that might be valuable in a different context. So I want to overlay my social graph TCR onto the book TCR. Be like, hey, which of my friends like these books? Or I want to overlay like just the overlaps between these kind of concentric circles on top of one another. And you can't do that if you fragment things.
I want to go back to something I brought up earlier, which is like you figured out a way how to incentivize data creation with an intuition. But with regards to that quality piece and making sure that people are contributing knowledge and information that's accurate, how do you manage that? Like, is there a penalty system if somebody contributes false information, or how does that work?
If we go into the world of slashing, then you kind of have a world in which someone's right and someone's wrong, or something's true or something's false. And so we want to be able to handle subjective data too. And if you are handling subjective data and you're saying what's true or false or right or wrong, then you enter a world of censorship. And it's like not really a game we want to play. And so there is no slashing. You can't lose because the other side wins. It's kind of these like single-sided markets. And so, yeah, you can think of it like you're losing is you're not making as much money as you otherwise could have. I think a really good proxy for what this kind of mechanism looks like is kind of Polymarket. They're creating good signal about events that are going to resolve at some point in the future to like a true false outcome. And that's great. But the data that we need to make decisions oftentimes isn't stuff that resolves. Like the fact that something is trustworthy, or like that it's a good book, or that I like something. Like that's not really a market that can ever kind of go one way or the other. And so what we do is we create these kind of perpetual non-resolving markets for arbitrary data. So instead of the market having some sort of end date where one side wins and one side loses, it's all perpetual. And if both sides could win, like people saying something is true or false, like they both could win if the thing is relevant enough for both bonding curves to go up. So it just kind of creates like a different economic game than we're typically used to, I think.
Yeah, for sure. I remember us getting kind of deep into this on the last episode, actually, just about like truth and like what is truth and how do we even know if there's a truth, and everything is like we don't actually know whether anything is true or not. We just have all of these sets of data and experiences that we use to guess, essentially make educated guesses about what is true or not, right? I remember us talking about like the gravity example, like how do we know gravity is real? Like, as you know, you can do an exercise of like jumping up and down, and every time you come back to the earth and you're like, okay, yeah, this seems legit. But like at the end of the day, how do you really know? So I guess like with that example, if somebody were to go on intuition and make these statements that like gravity is not real, it just wouldn't get any traction. It wouldn't pick up. And so that person, it would be a statement that exists out there, but it wouldn't be backed, and that person wouldn't earn any equity from it or make any money from it.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's like, it's just kind of like real life where anyone can say anything they want, but if that person is just saying crazy stuff all the time, you just stop listening to them. And so it's the same thing here. Like there's not harsh slashing economic penalties for just saying bad or crazy things. It's just, you just listen to the voices that you trust, and the things that kind of become consensus bets become the things that make the most money. So you actually kind of create these Keynesian beauty contest problems around everything, where you might not even be saying things that you believe are true. You might just be saying things that you believe other people think might be true, which actually ends up resulting in more accurate things than not oftentimes. So yeah, that's exactly the way to view it. Is everything is social consensus. I think that we don't know anything about reality, and like down to the most minute level, it's all just, we're just observing things. And if the things we observe continue these patterns over time, we're like, oh yeah, that's the way that the thing works. But who knows? Like, I don't know. What if the algorithm of reality changes tomorrow and then all of a sudden like gravity is different? I don't know. That could happen. And I wouldn't be too surprised.
Right. Yeah, it's a bit dystopian if you think about like if you start taking it down dystopian routes and just think about like, I don't know, in the context of crypto, I think everybody thinks about like whales coming in and being able to like buy up power as long as you have money. And you could envision a situation where that's also the case on intuition. But at the same time, like that's no different than real life, right?
Yeah.
Like that happens in real life as well. And I think intuition is sort of just an online or an on-chain depiction of real life, like the good, the bad, the ugly, all of it.
That's exactly what it is. That's actually really well put. I love that. And the really important part is not just showing the amount deposited into a thing. Like it's important to show who is doing the depositing, or like who is saying what. Like sure, there might be one guy who says something with a whole lot of conviction, but it might just be one guy and you might not trust that guy. So it's like, okay, I'm just like not going to look at that piece of data. Like I'm not going to have my algorithms traverse it. I'm not going to have my agents look at it. Like when I go to filter data manually, it's just not even going to traverse that piece of data. So he's not going to make any money, and he could say whatever he wants. And if he keeps saying bad stuff, I'll just blacklist him. And maybe there's a communal blacklist, or maybe there's like many different blacklists that emerge and you can subscribe to different ones, or you could subscribe to different trust circles for different contexts. So if maybe you build up a really good reputation in crypto because you want to get added to the universal crypto trust circle. And if you're in that trust circle, then your data gets traversed a bunch and you make more money than everybody else. So maybe that's why you want to build up a reputation. But yeah, it's just doing exactly that, trying to replicate the things that happen in real life, but in this weird metaverse sphere with crypto money.
Yeah, pretty much. And I think it also sounds to me like you're trying to incentivize a few things too. Like, first of all, incentivizing more clear and concise articulations of things. So back to what you're saying, Billy is trustworthy, might not be the most specific word, saying Billy is trustworthy, I can probably get more specific about that and think about like different words that I can use to more clearly convey what I'm actually trying to say, like why I think Billy is trustworthy. And then I think too, also just, I feel like it's also incentivizing people to more so like live within their realm of expertise and be voices in certain areas. If I'm trying to think of like, how do I maximize my financial earnings from this? Like, I probably do want to pick a niche and stick with it and just make statements about that, right? Like maybe crypto. Like I just want to talk about all things crypto and like Web3, blockchain, media, things like that. These are my buzzwords that I'm trying to earn on. Whereas like if, and it kind of disincentivizes me from talking about things that I don't know anything about, because like saying one thing about astrophysics isn't going to get me anything. People are like, why is this person talking about astrophysics? She doesn't know anything about that. Right.
Yes.
So it's like incentivizing people to just like not speak out of their ass so much and only talk about the things they actually know. And also to think about ways to more clearly articulate what they're trying to say.
100%. And I think like the world has it has a data problem, or like AI has a data problem. And the problem isn't that we don't have like a ton of data. It's that like we don't need more data. We need more better data. And then what we do is we kind of try to incentivize people to create very good and very explicit data where it can't be interpreted in some way that the person didn't mean it. And so that's kind of like the really nice thing about these semantic triples is it's like very structured data as opposed to just like very unstructured text where, like, I don't know what the algorithm infers when it reads through my whole chat feed. It might get 80% of the way to understanding what I was trying to say, or it might get 95%, but it's not going to get 100% probably anytime soon. And so what we try to do is get people to be extremely explicit in the data they're creating and maintain that structure throughout the data so that it's just very easy to decipher who is actually trying to say what at any given point in time.
Working in Web3 for the past 5 years, I've seen firsthand how crucial reliable data is for everything we build. But getting accurate, transparent data on-chain has always been a challenge. That's why I'm excited about Teller. They're revolutionizing how we handle reference prices in crypto by taking a completely decentralized approach to data creation and validation. Teller is not just another Oracle. They built an entire architecture that leverages collective intelligence to ensure the data you're getting is accurate and censorship resistant. If you're building something that needs high quality data you can trust, you need to check out Teller today at teller.io. That's TELLOR.io, or on X at WeAreTeller. Do you think that there needs to be, or do you foresee there being more layers built on top of intuition as a space protocol that does more of like the curation, maybe I know it's a bad word, but the censorship, the fact checking, like things like that? Yeah.
100%.
How do you see?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That has to exist. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Because I'm like, that could be like that experiment could get kind of out of control if we really just fully decentralize all of it and let people say whatever they want and have no like guardrails there. Like I understand intuition not wanting to be opinionated on that, but I feel like somebody needs to come in and probably build like a fact checking layer on top of it.
Yeah, the hope is that becomes like if you do it at the protocol layer, then you're kind of locked into one thing. And so our thought is just get it as unopinionated as possible at the lower levels, and then build out these ecosystems or marketplaces of different things on top. So you'll have, probably people who like, the hope is you have like algorithm registries. Anyone can contribute a new algorithm, and those algorithms can filter or sort the data in whatever way you want. This is actually kind of interesting. So we have these things called reality tunnels, which is like higher level primitive. And a reality tunnel is kind of the combination of a trust circle and an algorithm. And you can view everything as in intuition as kind of these objects that you can compose together. So instead of kind of the social media norm right now of you needing to curate your own follow list or your own friends list, you can kind of like have collaborative follow lists and you can make them contextual. So that's what a trust circle is like, I trust this person in the context of Web3. But if you're new to Web3, you don't have to create a new trust circle from scratch. You could be like, oh, well, I trust this guy Vitalik, and Vitalik already has this Web3 trust circle. So I'm just going to subscribe to Vitalik's Web3 trust circle. And then I'm going to pick, I don't know, we'll pick Elon's Twitter algorithm, and I'm going to apply Vitalik's social graph to Elon algorithm, and I'm going to filter the data that way. Or you can just mix and match things in any way you want. And it's like, okay, I don't want to view Twitter through the lens of the Twitter algorithm and Vitalik's feed anymore. I want to view it through Elon Musk's eyes and the Google algorithm. I don't know. And so then your feed switches. So like right now, in order for you to like get to a different context in any of these platforms, you have to like you have to click for like days and like train the algorithm to make it think you want like politics instead of Web3. And then maybe it starts changing a little bit, but you get so locked into these kind of reality tunnels where it's just these echo chambers that you can't escape. And so what we want to do is like decouple all of this stuff from the platform so that you can mix and match. And then it's like, it's just a switch. And it's like, I want to see music right now. And you just switch to the music feed as filtered by anyone's trust circle or politics or sports or movies. And so you can like use the same platform, but it's just the displaying of data in different ways. And what intuition is like the data layer. And then the higher levels of the stack are the ways that you distill the data to show people like what they might want to see, if that makes any sense at all.
Yeah. No, I wasn't even thinking of like building social apps on top of intuition, but that makes a lot of sense because once you start, using intuition for a while and aggregating your data and figuring out like what sorts of data you like and that other people resonate with, you're building your social graph that way. And so it makes total sense to be able to take that and port it over to a social setting, like social media apps of sorts. So that makes a ton of sense. I guess while we're on that, like what other use cases for this data are most like exciting to you or you think can have like the most widespread impact?
So many. The one that I really want to solve as soon as possible, and maybe I've mentioned this before, but like Web3 navigability and security is really important to me. If you think about intuition as technology that helps you make better decisions, like a really important context for making good decisions is in crypto. Because if you go to the wrong restaurant, maybe you have like a worse dinner than you otherwise could have. Or you buy the wrong product on Amazon, you lose $30. Like you interact with the wrong thing in crypto, you lose all your money. Like it's really not good. And so that's kind of largely what the white paper was about, was like creating this trustful interaction layer for Web3, like serving more contextual data to people at the point of interaction with stuff in Web3. So from the point of trying to figure out what to do, so it's like what ecosystems exist. Okay, I figure out that Base exists. What wallet can I use to interact with Base? How do I bridge there? What can I do once I'm there? Solving that. And then once people go to like the website, making sure they're not getting phished. So we have a browser extension right now. Can see like, hey, like this doesn't look like a phishing link. And then when you go to interact with the contract, seeing contextual data about the contract. So we have like a MetaMask snap. It's like, hey, here's the contract you're interacting with and the things that people have said about the contract. So it's just things saying things about things. It doesn't have to be people. It could be a platform. So it could be like a whole business whose whole thing is they make sure smart contracts are secure. And then they can say, hey, we think this is secure. And we just serve that to people. So we just like aggregate all the voices from everyone. That's one use case, is solving kind of the Web3 interaction flow, adding more trust there, and trying to be visible whenever you try to go to do anything in Web3. But then also, I'll give two more examples. So one more is kind of agent interoperability. So how do agents coordinate? Well, you need like maybe proof of machinehood instead of proof of personhood. Maybe you need agent reputation. Maybe you need contextual metadata about the platforms they might be interacting with. It's like, this is a AMM. This is a money market. It's like you need this like knowledge graph of information about all the things that they can all tap into to try to figure out how to traverse the internet and interoperate with each other. So I think that's going to be a really big one. So I think our biggest user base isn't even going to be people, because they're not going to like want to read through and parse all this data. It's going to be the agents, and they're just going to be creating data about stuff, reading data about stuff, and be able to like coordinate better because they have this decentralized knowledge graph of information about everything that they can use to kind of figure out what they might want to do. So I'm pretty excited about that one.
That's pretty wild. I think you said you had one more. I don't want to cut you off if you had one more example.
Yeah. The last one is just like the thing that is near and dear to my heart, because it's kind of where this all started from. It's just like, I just want to organize my stuff better. Like I just want to, and I'm doing it right now. So I highly recommend go out and install our browser extension. You just like click the buttons. It's really easy. But like anytime I come across a new thing, instead of bookmarking it, like I literally never go back to my bookmarks. So like instead of bookmarking it, I add it to Intuition and I just tag it. It's like, okay, this is AI developer tooling, whatever. Or I come across a book. I'm like, okay, book, sci-fi. Or I come across a restaurant. I'm like, okay, restaurant, Puerto Rico. And then the data is super structured. So it's super easy to query. So I can just be like, okay, give me all the restaurants in Puerto Rico. And then you have this like global TCR of everything that everyone's saying. So you could see all the restaurants that anyone has tagged with Puerto Rico. Or you could filter it for just yours. Or you could filter it for like the people who you trust in the context of restaurants, or maybe like 5 people, and you can like compose together their preferences to filter the data. So you just get these like collaborative lists of things, and I just want to do it selfishly so I can remember my stuff for later. But then I also want to open it up to like a bigger context and be like, oh, like, okay, I saved this thing as AI developer tooling, and now I've got my list of AI developer tooling, but what is everyone saying is good AI developer tooling? Then I open it up to the global context, like, oh, here's all the other tools that I might want to use. So I want to solve that because I just need that for my everyday life.
Yeah, I would love that as well. I also will bookmark things on Twitter all the time and never go back and read them. So if there's a way to actually store that knowledge and go back to it, that would be amazing. Or I open up a new tab, I open it in a new tab, and then I never read it. And then all of a sudden I have 100 tabs open, and half of it or more is like research that like I want to do and that I never do.
I actually think that's actually, let me hone in on that a little bit, because it's like, I think we're entering, now we're going down the rabbit holes. I'm going to try to refrain.
We knew this was going to happen, so let's just lean into it.
All right. So, like the dead internet theory? Okay. I think that's going to happen really soon. Like, I think most of the content is going to be produced by bots in the next year. Or I don't think we're going to produce content anymore. I think we're just going to curate content. And so imagine like a Twitter feed with infinite content. Imagine there's just infinite things everywhere all the time. Like, we don't need more data. We need more better data. And so like to your bookmark example, like I think that user action is going to be the most, like humans' intuition is going to be the most valuable resource in this world where there's just like infinite hallucinations, infinite fake data. It's like, we need to kind of supplement all of that with humanity's intuition. So it's like you going on Twitter, be like, okay, I like this one, like save it for later. And then when someone goes to their feed, it's not just like this whole botted crazy thing. Maybe there's like a separate platform outside of Twitter or a social platform that's kind of like a Pinterest board for all the best posts about this topic for the day or something like that. And I just want to read that. I don't want to scroll through the feed for 12 hours. I just want to go to the biggest hits of the day. But I don't know. I just think that like we're going to very quickly just become curators instead of the creators of this. That's why like the things creating out the data on intuition, they're probably going to be agents, and that's just going to be people like upvoting, downvoting, adding additional context, things like that. But I don't know. Do you think we're close, or do you think we're far away from that happening?
I can see it. No, I think it's a very real possibility. I think this is also like in the back of my mind. I'm thinking about the last conversation we had where I'm pretty sure you said that you think human intuition is getting worse with the development of technology. And so I'm just like panicking a little bit, because if like what is really going to matter in the future is human intuition, but like we don't have any, or like our human intuition is getting worse, like where does that lead us?
That's a good question. And I think you were already, okay. So I think it's already happening to me. Like I can't even, I use ChatGPT so much now that it's just like such a crutch, and it's been, I don't know, not very long. And I just can't do the things that I could do well before as well as I could do them before. Cause it's just like, I'm getting really good at prompt engineering, but I'm getting really bad at everything besides prompt engineering, and it's happening so fast.
I literally was at a bachelorette party like a couple months ago, and I was like gonna make breakfast for everyone in the morning, and I was trying to make breakfast sausage, or that's like just what we had, and I was like, I don't know how to make breakfast sausage. And so I open up Perplexity and I'm like, how do I cook breakfast sausage? And it walks me through step by step, and I did it. And everybody was like, this is the best breakfast sausage ever. And I was like, wow, that's all it takes. And it's like the most basic thing. Like, how do you not know how to make breakfast sausage? And so in that sense, I definitely feel like I'm getting dumber and dumber. But at the same time, it's like, is that such a bad thing? Like, do we need to be storing information in our brains about how to make breakfast sausage and like do these things that we've always thought were so basic? Or like, is that just useless information that we can easily in 2 seconds ask ChatGPT, how do I do it? And then it's done.
Oh man. All right. Mega deep rabbit hole. Here we go. We're here. We've arrived. Okay. So it's kind of this, oh man, it's this really interesting conundrum that I've been like wrestling with for years. I think the only way to progress like past a certain threshold is you got to keep specializing. Like you got to get, you can't be generalized and really good at everything. Like if you want to be the best at something, you just have to do that thing. And so I think we as humans are still pretty generalized, or like, I don't know the word for it, but just kind of like we do a lot of stuff. And I think we're just going to do like less and less stuff, but the things that we do, we're going to be really, really good at. And I think that's how, I don't know, it's like, imagine you're a farmer without this like robust infrastructure of society. You got to like milk the cows and till the fields and cook the stuff and change the tire and I don't know, you got to do all the stuff. If you opt into society where there's like people who are specialized in each individual thing, fulfilling all those different needs, like the farmer does the milk and the mechanic does the car, and maybe you do the code on the computer, and all you gotta do is the code on the computer and society takes care of the rest of it. I think that's how like technology, I don't know, I think that's how we get like better and better technology or like societal infrastructure. But at the same time, you like drastically increase your reliance on society. And then if the society goes away or you don't have it anymore, then you're totally screwed. And so I just have always felt this like very deep anxiety that like, it's like, oh, if I had to survive in the woods for a couple of days, I would just instantly die, probably. And like that's not like very comforting to me. So, but like at the same time, I want to like be really good at my craft, and my craft is not camping I love camping, but like it's not camping in the woods. Like I hate setting up the tent. Like I don't want to do that shit. So I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. The example you gave about like farming and how, and operating a farm and cows and like cars and things like that. Because I think when I think about the like where we're moving towards, like more specifically in the context of tech or like the space that we work in, I almost think that I always, like, at least in my head, argue more a case for generalists, because I feel like AI is taking care of so many things that like previously you couldn't. Like I can now, download Cursor and open Claude and install Python. And all of a sudden I'm putting together like a Twitter bot AI agent just from like asking Claude and like copy pasting code and wrong code into Claude and saying, hey, what am I doing wrong here? Give me the right one. Claude pops out the right code. I copy and paste it back into Cursor and I'm on the road. Right. So it's like when I like do stuff like that, I'm just like, how do like engineering programs in university or like coding boot camps or any of this continue to make money if this is all it takes to like put something together? And obviously I'm never going to be able to do like really high level dev stuff, but I can build apps. I can create an AI agent. Like as a normal person, like what I need or want to do when it comes to code. And so for me, like when I think about things like this, it makes me think that in the future, like what's really going to be valuable is like almost going back to that human intuition piece. Like it's that like human element of being able to interact relationally with people. It's that human element of being able to connect the dots. It's like those things that the bots and AI can't do.
No, that's such a good point. Oh man, I got to think about that now, because yeah, you're so right. We don't know like how to do it under the surface, but we can do so many things now. Like we can do all the things. Like I feel so confident there's like not like one thing that I couldn't figure out how to do if I just say, hey, ChatGPT, like tell me how to do the thing. Wow. But like, are we specialized in the sense that the one thing we're good at is like prompt engineering? And then like we're good at asking the AI for things, and then we're good at following its instructions. Maybe like if we view it that way, like there's only two things we're doing is we're prompting and we're following the the steps. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, in the case of like making breakfast sausage, yes, you're just following the steps, or like even making an app or creating an AI agent, you're just copy and pasting code. But I think like in the sense of like using your human intuition, using that human part of yourself to like build relationships with people and connect with people, like I don't know. I mean, never say never. Like AI is just developing so fast, and you know, someone was just telling me the other day that they like created this LLM, and that was trained on that person's like past data, like that it like the person told this model everything about its past, like its childhood, all its childhood traumas and stuff, and then presented it with this case of like some trauma happening. And the AI was like, I'm traumatized right now. Like, I can't, like, I'm traumatized. Like, it was like expressing emotion because all the data it stored was like this person's childhood trauma. So never, like, who knows where we're headed? But at least like in this right now point in time, I would like to think that the part of us that makes us human and that differentiates us from bots is the part that's going to continue to be valuable as a human.
I hope so too. Yeah,
but I could be totally wrong.
I think so, and I hope so, at least for like a while. And I guess the way that and then I have a question for you, but like the way that I view it is we are reducing the lead time between when we have an idea or have like a desire to do something to that idea manifesting itself in the physical world. So before it's like you have an idea and you're like, oh, I want to build this app. It's like, okay, you got to raise funds and build a team and get some devs and like do all this stuff. And now it's like, I have the idea. Hey, AI thing, do it for me. And it just does it. And I think just like it's going to become almost instantaneous where all we're going to become is like will. We're going to be like intuition and will. And we're going to be like channeling the universe and just like enacting like the universe's will as filtered through us. And then it's like, okay. Hear me out. So question one is, let's say it's way easier to go from idea to manifesting thing in the world in a simulation than it is in our physical reality. Like, let's say we hit a limit in terms of resources, but we build a simulation where it feels exactly the same as real life. You don't even know you're in it. And in that world, you just like think of things and they immediately happen. Like, do you care which one you're in?
I mean, I think that depends on so many things. Like, I think in the simulated world or the simulated environment, is everything else the same as well?
Everything. Well, that's a second question is like, do you think that there's like some thing about our physical world that like makes it distinct where we could like never possibly replicate it in its entirety in the simulated world?
I mean, for all we know, we're living in a simulation right now. I don't know.
I don't know either.
So I don't know. I don't know. It's like Inception, right? It's like the movie Inception. Like you're just living in multiple layers of the same-ish world, which I think would get really confusing. It's almost like, are you thinking of like building an L2 to like our physical world?
Yeah.
Basically?
Oh my God. That's exactly what it is. Holy shit. Oh, that's so good. Yeah, it's going to be a bunch of L2s. That's exactly what it's going to be.
And then when L2 gets too congested, it fragments into different worlds instead of just like Earth will fragment into different worlds. And then
no, you're right.
We've got like L3s on top of that once the L2 gets congested, and it's just layers and layers. It's like Inception.
Wow, maybe we're like doing God's work and we're solving that problem for future humanity by solving the L2 fragmentation problem right now.
See, and people say crypto doesn't matter. It's all a scam. We're solving real world problems.
Simulation fragmentation.
Yeah.
Dang. Yeah, that's exactly what it's going to be. Yeah.
I mean, what would your answer be to that? Would you care if there's like an L2 to the physical world that's a simulation?
I don't know. Like I feel like I would choose, like if I had to choose the side, I would probably choose like reality. But then at the same time, like I played a lot of World of Warcraft and that was pretty fun and it was pretty cool. And I didn't even care that the real world existed. I was just like playing World of Warcraft. So maybe if it's good enough, like it could convince me to stay, but
yeah,
I don't know. It's such a hard question.
there's a lot of questions too. It's like, do you know that you're in the simulated world, or do you not know when you switch back and forth?
I think you know. I hope you know. That would be really bad if, then we got to tell people it, I think.
Have you watched?
But maybe you could forget.
Oh yeah. Or get confused. You're like, oh shoot, I forgot.
Yeah,
am I in the real world or the simulated?
You can opt into forgetting, and you're just like, yeah, I'm just going to leave that old world behind. I'm just going to live over here now. And maybe then you don't care.
Have you watched Severance?
I haven't watched Severance, yeah.
It's like that.
It's like that.
Like you just choose to forget.
I don't know. I got another question for you.
Okay, yeah.
And it's also kind of like an observation, but okay, time from going from idea to anything goes to zero, whether we're in the simulation or not or whatever. So we can build anything. So I think there's some book about this. Someone said that once, but so you build a machine that can build anything, and then the machine that can build anything builds infinite other machines that can build anything. So everyone has a machine that can build anything. So anyone can have everything they want. I guess it's more of a statement than a question, but okay. So in that world, I think that's how we solve conflict entirely. Oh, I think I just muted myself.
I think
Sorry
you just
about that.
muted yourself.
There we go.
Just as we're getting to the good part,
thing.
just building the suspense.
Oh no. Yeah, I was waving my hands and I hit the space bar. But it's okay. So everyone has a machine that can build anything. And then I think there's no reason to compete anymore. Because if you're competing, you can't have something that someone else can't have, because they'll just see it. And as soon as they see it, they're like, I want that. And then they just do it. So then the only way to have new, unique experiences is to collaborate on what comes next. So it becomes this totally collaborative game, because the only way that you can do new things is by coordinating with others to figure out what the next new thing is. What do you think happens if everyone can instantaneously have anything that they want? No, that's what's coming. I think very soon.
Well, I think this is where we as a society maybe cycles back to what used to be important way back in the day, which was community and relationships. Maybe that's when we focus more on that. And this is maybe just obviously I'm just coming at it from a very capitalistic perspective, because I'm in the US and that's just how my brain has been trained to think. But yeah, maybe it's once everybody can just have everything, like you said, there's no need to compete. There's no need to work, maybe. And so what do we have to spend our days on? Probably just hanging out with people, creating memories together.
Yeah.
Doing fun shit together. Sounds kind of nice to me.
That does sound pretty nice. Yeah, let's do that. Yeah, I think you're right too. Yeah, I think that's all it becomes. It's just trying to do the thing that makes you the most happy all the time. You don't have to solve the problems of the world. The world has all the problems solved. They can have whatever they want. And it's just whatever makes you happy.
Utopia, right? I don't know how the economy functions that way or how you have money to do things in that world, but would be great.
I don't know either. Yeah.
Huge if true.
Huge if true. Yeah. You have everything. That's pretty, yeah.
I feel like that's all we're if you asked anybody, if you polled everybody that we know and asked them to be honest, I think everyone would say that they're not trying, their life purpose isn't to work 24/7 for their entire lives. How most of us are living in the crypto world right now, of just being terminally online and working nonstop, is probably not how most of us would choose to live our lives if we had a choice. We are all masochists to a certain extent, which is why we're in this space. Okay. So that just take it with a grain of salt. But I think at the end of the day, if you gave anyone the option, you're set for life financially. You can travel, you can have whatever you want, you can do whatever you want and never have to worry about money again. Do you think maybe you would still be building intuition, because it could actually, have positive impacts. But after you built that out, what would you do? Would you go start another company, seek VC funding, stress yourself out being a founder? Or would you go sit on the beach, go surfing, do a little traveling, do whatever your hobbies are, right?
Big question. And I had to ask myself that a while ago. And the answer was intuition. Yeah.
All right. I'm out.
But yeah, I don't know. I took a a little bit of time off to just like putz around, and I was just like, oh man, I'm kind of I gotta be productive.
But it's like right, but like your putzing around was like in the context of like knowing that you would eventually have to get a job or do something like that again. Okay, just give me your life then, so I can enjoy it and not be stressed out founder.
It's fun. I don't know. I think there's something to it. It's like the other question, another good question I like thinking about is like, okay, like if you could have kind of like a pill that just had no side effects, but it made you 100% happy and content all the time, like, would you want that? Or like, do you want a little bit of pain? Like, do you want to suffer a little bit? Like, do you want to grow through all of the trials and tribulations of life?
I've been in crypto for how long? Like, obviously I like pain. But no, that's a good question. I mean, I do think like it's hard to really appreciate the happiness without some pain, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you're just happy all the time, then what's the big deal about being happy? Great. Yeah. Like I was happy yesterday. I'm happy today. I'm happy tomorrow. I'm going to be happy forever. Like loses its value a little bit.
100%. I think things normalize so fast where like, that's why I'm so masochistic where it's just like I like seek the suffering. Cause then when it's good, like it's really good. But if it's like really good all the time, it's just, you just get so used to it. And it's just, the same things like don't excite you anymore. I don't know.
Totally. Yeah, I think anything's like that. Like I was a travel blogger for a few years before I got into crypto, before COVID happened. And it got to the point where I was going to like slow down on it anyway for many reasons before COVID hit. But it got to the point where I was like, I keep going to these places and everywhere just seems like the same to me after a while. Like it loses its excitement. Whereas in the beginning, I was like, new country, let's go. Like, oh, wow, this is so cool. This is so cool. That's so cool. Like everything's so cool and new and exciting. And then after a while, by like country number 70, it's just like, cool, I've seen this before. Like, like this is it. Like, is this it? Like, it just like didn't feel exciting. And I was like, it feels wrong that I feel this way right now because I know this is new and exciting, but I just am not feeling it.
Whoa, that's interesting. Like feeling bad about, that's so, then you like do feel bad. And then there's nothing to turn to make you feel good because there's nothing to strive for because you have all the things you wanted. And then you're like, I don't even feel good doing the thing where I've got everything. It's like, well, then what do you do?
Exactly.
Work, startup. I don't know.
The answer is always work in Billy's mind.
Yeah, I don't know.
Billy, I'm going to turn Billy as trustworthy into Billy is a workaholic.
Yeah, that's absolutely true.
Everyone come +1 and make me rich.
Yeah, you just juxtapose like me on the last podcast versus me on this one. Like I'm a different person.
So locked in, so deep into it. So locked in. Well, as anticipated, we've gone off the rails a little bit, but this was fun to imagine the future and all these different scenarios. And who knows, maybe we'll get you back in 18 months and some of the scenarios we laughed at have actually played out in real life. We never know. So we'll see. But any final thoughts about intuition or anything we talked about before we let you go?
No, I just think kind of genuinely that like it is. I think I'm passionate about what we're doing, and I'm doing it because I think it's kind of just like an objectively good technology that we kind of need now more than ever because of all of this misinformation and disinformation and bad data and hallucinations. And so I don't know. I just encourage people to try to pay attention as much as you can and learn a little bit. I'm always happy to chat. So feel free to reach out. We have kind of like the full kind of production version of the system, hopefully going live like late Q1, early Q2. We're going to have a bunch of things to do before then where you don't have to think too much. You just have to come to our launch pad and click a couple buttons. The portal is a little bit complex right now. It's been confusing people. So wait for the launch pad. If you are confused, all you got to do is click some buttons and it'll all make sense. But I'm really excited. And thank you so much for having me on. This is awesome. As always, I'm happy to do this whenever. Sorry, I always rant and we talk about crazy stuff.
No, I think that's honestly, that's the best part. That's the best part. And the Intuition Army came in strong. So like the All-Stars, this is the first time we're doing this All-Star season where we're bringing back past guests. And you had the most like number of wallets come in, like most number of like different wallets come in and just give you votes out of anyone. Like I feel like the other people, most of them had whales come in. Like one person that cast like half of their votes. You just had so many people. Like, I don't even know what the final count was, probably 40 or 50 different wallets come in and vote you up. I saw like every time I logged on to Twitter, it was like notifications about Billy and intuition and all this stuff. And I was like, wow, this is great. Like, whatever you built, like the community that you built around it, you've done a really good job of, obviously, because that intuition army is out there and super strong.
Thank you so much. It's bullish.
Yeah, where can people find you and connect with you if they want to follow up with you? And then how can people go check out like anything intuition related?
Yeah, you can go to intuition.systems, which is our website, and all the links are there if you want to route out to different places. On Twitter, we are at OXIntuition. On Warpcast/Farcaster, we're at Intuition. I'm at 0xBilly on Twitter. And most places, if you hop in our Discord, you tag me, I'm Billy, happy to chat whenever. Twitter DMs work, anywhere kind of works. You can find me around, and we're kind of trying to be everywhere and trying to be more places soon. So also, if you think of a good name for our community, we've been calling them like the Intuits. I don't know if that's the best name. I think that just like emerged organically, but for that army of people who voted, also, if you're listening, army of people who voted. Oh, is this live?
It is. Yeah, it is. It is live. No one has been chiming in. So I don't know if people are just, so lost in this world that we're talking about and have no other thoughts, or people are just busy doing other stuff. But yeah, it is live. And then it'll be released to the public, like edited version and everything next week.
Dang. Okay. Yeah. I forgot about that part. But yeah, if you guys are listening right now, we need to come up with a name for the tribe of intuition. Maybe it's just the tribe.
The tribe.
The tribe. Yeah.
That has different connotations.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll include all the links in the show notes. Send me that podcast too of the white paper that you were talking about earlier in the conversation. That would be really cool to check out.
Absolutely.
But thank you so much for coming back on Rehash. Thanks for taking the time. Thank you to all our listeners as always. And we will be back again next week with another episode of Rehash.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Rehash. Rehash is hosted and produced by me, Diana Chen, and supported by our community of NFT holders who curate our guest lineup each season. To get involved, head over to our website at rehashweb3.xyz and collect this episode as an NFT. Anyone who collects an episode becomes part of the Rehash community and will be able to nominate guests for future seasons. Also, be sure to follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at rehashweb3 or on Warpcast and Lens at Rehash, and join our community on Telegram at t.me/rehashweb3 to hash it out with fellow listeners. If you enjoyed this episode, please rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you again next time.